Steel, aluminum, cement, indispensable for us all, but their production is a gargantuan problem for the environment.
If we want to save our climate, our Earth, we need to profoundly change industry.
Because it's heating up our planet, with greenhouse gases and an insatiable appetite for energy.
We have Dubai Grid, and we are comparable in what we utilize for our process.
The rethink is beginning, slowly but urgently.
If radical change doesn't occur in these industrial sectors, we won't be able to hit the targets.
How can the big environmental offenders clean up their act? A climate-friendly commute to work. Dr. Mohammed Safi's routine for 15 years.
I cycle to work whatever the weather. I see it as a challenge, as a task. I need to do my bit in both my professional and my private life.
But in the workplace, that's not so easy for Mr. Safi. His employer produces steel, making it one of the big environmental offenders. The engineer is deputy plant manager at ArcelorMittal in Hamburg, responsible for the smooth running of the furnaces. Steel. We can't manage without it. It's in buildings, vehicles, and household appliances. But its production is harmful to our climate, and the steel industry isn't the only offender. If you include energy and heat consumption in the math, the industry is responsible for 43% of global emissions, significantly more than the construction and transport sectors. More than 70% of industrial emissions stem from the manufacture of just 3 basic substances: steel, cement, and chemicals. Steel production was responsible for some 3 billion tons of CO2 in the last year alone. Mostly to blame, the blast furnaces. Where the vast amounts of coal are burned. The production of 1 ton of crude steel results in 2 tons of CO2. Normally, but not in Hamburg. Here, something's happening that's a better fit for Mohammed Safi's philosophy.
I'm personally trying to live an eco-friendly life. That's why I'm pleased if the process I'm working in is also climate-friendly and isn't causing lasting environmental damage.
But how's that supposed to work? Climate-friendly steel production? The first ingredient, natural gas replacing coal as a source of energy. This emits less CO2. Ingredient number 2, steel recycling, cutting emissions by 2/3 compared to production in the blast furnace. But researchers see perhaps the most potential in green hydrogen, a source of energy seen as a future replacement for coal and gas, which is expensive and now in short supply. It's a crucial time for Mohammed Safi and his boss Uwe Braun. They're discussing where to locate the new hydrogen plant.
We're the trailblazers. We've got the means to move things in the right direction. But we also need support in a political level. On the one hand, we need vast quantities of hydrogen. We need the green electricity and, of course, the economic framework for our products.
In other words, it's going to be expensive. On the road to emissions-free steel, who's picking up the tab? And how long will it take? Germany's climate action package sets out an ambitious roadmap for the years up to 2030. Economist Katja Schumacher says much of the pressure is now on industry.
A lot still needs to happen before 2030. Emissions have to be reduced by another 30%. The government's official projection reports suggest that if significantly greater efforts aren't made now, industry won't hit its targets in 2030.
Some individuals are well on the way to hitting their targets. One of them is Mohammed Safi. He tries to adopt a green lifestyle wherever possible. He built his house in 2012 with environmental protection in mind. There are solar panels on the roof. His heating system runs on geothermal energy, making it 100% climate neutral. But for the engineer, there's always room for improvement. Together with his sons, he weighs up how to make his home even more eco-friendly. At the moment, the roof only has solar panels facing south and west.
It would be good if we could include the eastern side to use the sun's energy in the mornings too.
Compared to what industry needs to do, his contribution to climate protection is tiny, but
everyone can play a part, whether it's separating trash, installing solar panels, using electric cars or public transport. If every single one of us makes little contributions like these, of course the overall effect will be huge.
But not nearly as huge as measures taken by industry. After all, it's been producing the most harmful substances to date. But can these emissions also be useful? Steel production at ThyssenKrupp in Duisburg. Here, experts are homing in on waste gases from steel production, primarily carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. In the past, they were usually flared off. Physicist Markus Ohlers now collects them with his plant. His goal, to utilize waste gases as a raw material.
Today, it's not possible to design all chemical processes in a way that produces no CO2 at all. And steelmaking is ultimately a chemical process. The question is what to do with it afterwards. And we think we've found an answer. To pass on remaining CO2 emissions from one industry to the next, where they can be recycled as a raw material.
Markus Ohlers is keen to find out if this can work, together with colleague Tim Schulzke. The engineer from the Fraunhofer Institute has built a test plant to produce methanol using waste gases. Other necessary ingredients: hydrogen and oxygen. Eco-friendly methanol works well as fuel, in the shipping industry, for example. A methanol-powered ferry is already plying the waters between Kiel and Gothenburg. Waste gases for methanol production. If it works, it's doubly useful.
The methanol approach makes it possible to remove CO2 from the steelworks process and turn it into input materials for the chemicals industry. Balancing things out with the steel industry on the one hand and the chemicals industry together means you can pretty much cut CO2 emissions by half.
Sounds like a win-win situation. But how developed is the process? A test.
I'm at the circuit gas valve and ready to open it.
Okay, then I'll count down. 3, 2, 1, open.
The plant must always be operated by 2 people at the same time, for safety reasons, in case toxic gases escape.
You can relieve the pressure now.
Pressure's under 6 bar.
In the gas bottles, a blend of typical waste gases: carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, both extremely harmful to the environment. A small miracle occurs inside the plant. The addition of hydrogen creates valuable, climate-friendly methanol.
Ready to take a sample. Open the valve now, please.
Okay.
And there it is, the substance that could eventually clean up steel production. But it'll be years before there's enough of it for large-scale industrial use.
Sampling complete. Please close the valve. Holding this liquid sample in my hand is a big success for me, because it was a real fight getting the details of the project right. And it will be even greater once the first production with waste gases has taken place at the Duisburg Steelworks. But at this stage, I'm very pleased with what I've got in my hand.
A small bottle that represents huge change. If the industry is serious about protecting the climate, vast plants will need to undergo a thorough remodeling. This will take time, but a window of opportunity is about to present itself. After all, many plants have had their day.
Studies have shown that these sorts of investments in industry are due over the next 8 years. And if we make clever use of them, installing and investing in climate-friendly technologies now, then targets might be reached. But this has to happen across the board and not just in individual plants.
Here, it's precisely the other way around. The focus isn't replacing the old, but reusing it. Civil engineer Aminata Boare and her team are here to salvage construction materials, to protect the climate. This office building in Frankfurt is about to be renovated. Usually, much of the discarded material would end up at the dump. It's a waste of resources that are themselves responsible for creating a lot of CO2, says Aminata Boare. She's been commissioned by the real estate company to give a second life to as much of the construction material as possible. The first step, documenting every section of the building.
Maybe it's important that these can be adjusted, that you can make them narrower before you put them back in.
Photos for the catalog. It's hoped even this turnstile will find a new owner.
Theoretically, we can reuse all types of building material: flooring, doors, stairs, grate sections. They can all be removed and reinstated. We just have to ensure the deconstruction is worthwhile.
Each element is recorded in an app. Anyone shopping on here can ease their climate conscience a little. Reusing material means saving on the CO2 produced in primary manufacture. Ideas like this are urgently needed, but mindset change in the building sector is sluggish.
In Germany, unfortunately, only 1% of materials are currently reused, although sometimes the condition of these building materials is still adequate for reintroduction. Or sometimes they just need a bit of preparation before they can be reutilized. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen.
This means a lot of stuff is ending up at the dump when it